Funding for The Router Workshop is provided in part by Hitachi Power Tools, manufacturers of a full range of construction and woodworking power tools. With a router and a little creative thinking, you can create some very unique and truly beautiful projects. Today, Bob and Rick show you how to select and use hardware, as well as apply decorative molds along tops, sides, and bases. Next, right here in The Router Workshop.
Welcome to the Router Workshop. Today we're going to talk about boxes, or hinges and boxes and all kinds of different styles of lids.
This one I've got a hinge on it, Rick, and this one is a little different. We've routed it out into an old-fashioned pencil box, and it does have a dovetail slide on it. And it slides inside of this one, and then it opens up, and you got the extra layer, and it's dovetailed on the bottom side. I'll roll it over, you can see the dovetail there. Yeah. So it does put a little different operation on a lid, and that's what it's all about today, is talking about lids and how you fasten them to the box. But,
right. And on this one here, we don't have any hardware on it. It just sort of fits on the top of it. It's got a rabbet along the bottom side of it and just matches just perfectly inside of it. Some of these ones, we have to have some kind of hinge factor to it. And so, Dad, you have one there that has a hinge in the box on the side?
We'll lay the piano hinge in it, Rick. Right. And if you'll just show them some samples in your section here about how to dress up the lids, and maybe the bases too, because that has to play a part in it.
Right on.
I will let you take these with you over. I'll help you set them over there.
Well, I'll just take them. There we go. I can get all these over here and get out of the way.
We're going to accomplish two things here. Number one, we're going to show you how to chisel out a gain with a router, as opposed to a wood chisel, for a piano hinge, and also how to cut the lid off the top of the box. Now, we don't have a bottom in it, and that provides us a little option here. You can see what's going on a little better. And what I need to do is we've glued this top on, and it's flush. But we need to cut a slot in here, and we're going to cut a slot to provide this gain for this piano hinge. Well, when it's closed up, it really doesn't take much to do it. It's pretty thin, as you can see. However, I'm going to use a 1/4-inch bit and cut a slot in the back of this box. That's going to be the length of the hinge, and then that'll give us this 1/4-inch. And it sounds like a lot of space, but what we have to do is allow for the kerf of the cut around the box, so when it closes up, we'll lose half of that. And that should be just exactly what we need. That's a big job to chisel out a piano hinge that length in a narrow piece. If you had this up here and tried to mark that and chisel it in, it would take quite an operation, where the router is very simple. Well, there's a couple of things we have to do. I want to clamp that box into place so it doesn't move around, and we're going to use a portable router for it. So we'll pop this in here like this. And now we're going to use this portable router, and I've chucked up a 1/4-inch bit in it. And that 1/4-inch bit, I'll just pop this back in here so you can have a look at it, is a standard 1/4-inch bit. It's exactly 1/4 wide. It's got a spiral bit. And what I'm going to do is plunge and then move the router along the operation, and it'll be held by this. This is the fence. Now we'll tighten that up in here. And my problem is this. When I set it up on top and come along, when you come to the end here, it wants to veer off to the side. So what we're going to do prior to that, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to take that out and lay it around the other way. And I'll clamp the piece on first. That'll probably work a little better. Tip it up. We'll lay the block down like that. And we'll put the... Have to be careful you don't get your clamps in the way. Get that out of there. And do the same at this side. And tighten that down. And now, that'll work. Gives you a little idea. Keep it straight anyway. And clamp these two clamps on. I'm up just a little bit there, so I'm just going to tap that down and make sure they're tight. Sometimes vibration will set those clamps loose in it, and you don't want that to happen. Now, setting distance. When we set the router down in here, we'll set it in there, and the distance, people, depends on how thick a lid you want on it. And of course, the depth is going to depend on the thickness you're cutting through. So we'll set it like that, and I'm going to raise this depth gauge up here and run that up, and that's set up like that. It's about 1/2 inch, so we'll make sure it goes right through, and we'll lock it down. Now, rotation of the bit is a necessity here. Anytime you're running anything and you're pulling a router to you, you need the fence on this side. If you're going the opposite way, again, it has to move in that direction. So I'm going to start from this end and go down. And I put 2 lines on here, and the 2 lines represent the length of the box cut for that piano hinge. So I'll set the hinge over there, and we should be away. Now, get the cord out of the road and pop it up. Make sure that all the screws here are tight so they don't vibrate loose, and we get some power. Hinge is ready to go. We'll get this off and plugged in, and let's go. Now we'll just set that way there. There's a good, feel a little fuzzy come up inside of it. We'll just push those cuttings through. Now, maybe you can see in here, see the gap that I've got on either side? I've got a good 1/8 of an inch there extra, but I got good length on it, so it'll fit down in there fine. Now what we need to do is set up a different operation, and we're going to put a slot cutter in and cut a 1/8 slot in here. It's not that it's a little tricky outfit, but it is a little bit different to do. Let me take these clamps off of here. We'll get rid of some things. And in the table mount system, we're going to even change routers in there. So we'll set that aside, and I'll get rid of that plug-in. And we'll change routers. The router that we're going to put in this time has got a big hole plate in it because the cutter that I've got needs that kind of space. This is the slot cutter. This slot cutter sits on an arbor, and it's 1/8 of an inch. So it's going to take up 1/8 of an inch kerf when you cut it. And we got it set in here, and the cutter fits in the router, and I'll show you the big hole plate once we get this chucked up in here. Loosen that up, tighten it down, really good, and make sure it's tight. Now, run it around. And see the big hole pit allows that little space to come through. So we'll just set it there for now. We'll determine the height here in a minute. Pop it in. Now we need a fence. Kind of a unique fence that I've got here too is that it has 2 pins in the back side. And those 2 pins will go in 2 holes in it, and it'll set you up and give you a location in it here. So we'll pop it in there like that. 2 clamps on this. And we'll see what we can do. Takes just about all the space we got on those clamps. You wouldn't really need the clamps thing, but sometimes any vibration will pop them pins out of there, so you're always safer to put this in place like that. And you notice the cutter, too, is housed inside of the fence, so it's a safe operation. Now, what about height of the bit? The height of the bit, we'd like to be a center in that groove. So let me just set this down, and I'll show you here after, when I get this set up here, what I've set to it. And we're just about there. Now, there's the cut. The cut's going to come through and leave us this gain on either side in it. Now, let me just put this up tight in there. Now, here's the problem. I'm going to cut this side, roll it around, and cut this side, and then I'm going to stop. Isn't that cut slick? You won't find a saw that'll do any better job than that. Now I've got this gap on that side. That box is cut right through. And if I can get a shot on the inside here, you can see where the slot cutter came on the inside. Now what's going to happen is when I cut the next side, this will want to drop down. So what we're going to do is put a couple of pieces in here like this, and we're going to tape that box together. So let's put some masking tape on it. Masking tape's good for a lot of things here. We want to tape that across there and pull it quite tight there. Make sure it's down snug. Tight that on there. I don't think the thickness of the tape. Now we got to do the other end too. So we got an extra piece here that we can do that with. And you notice that 1/8 is right on. It just fits real snug into there. Just like to bring that back just a little. I don't want it to hit the cutter if I can help it here. Probably got the pieces a little longer than they need to be, but I think they'll be okay. They should hold there. Okay, now what we're going to do is go along this side, turn it around the other side, and then we'll be able to take it apart. Let's start it up and try it. Now, we got a slot all the way around. Now all we got to do, and I'm going to take this off so you can have a little bit better look at it. We'll slip that out of the way, and we'll drop the cutter down, and we'll unplug it for safety here. And we'll take the tape off and see what we got. Now, lift that off, and it did cut apart. Lift our shims out of the road, and what you're going to see here is a little bit of a gain for that piano hinge. Now, get that hinge down in here, and it will fit right snug down in it.
I'm going to show you a simple way to put a top on a box and then mold it so it looks really sharp. To start off with, if you're making a lot of boxes, the easiest way to do it is to build the frame around the bottom and just glue the top on. You can also just glue the bottom on here, but for this part here, I'm just going to glue the top on, then I'm going to show you a really neat way to cut it off. The bit we're using here today is going to be a draw line bit. Now, I've already got it mounted in place. Let me get my pencil out here so you can see it. And what it is it's got a line on it, and then it's got a nice arc to a bearing. And what it's going to do is make it look really sharp. Now, for setting that up, what I've done is I've taken it from this point here and just put it flush to the edge. So we've got a little bit of a line on it to show us what our edge is going to be like. Now, I'm going to go ahead and mold that for you and show it to you. The next thing is, because we're working with a bearing and we're freehanding, the bearing, if I flip over my piece here, this is my top of the box. If I flip it over so you can see it, we want to get it up against the pin first, and then we go into the cutter till the bearing comes along and rides along the side of your box. So it's very important. Anytime you get in trouble, you can just move away from it. It's not a problem with that. Then go back to the pin again before you get back into it. It's very important, though, to have a pin on something like this because it's going to take it and move it around with you. All right, and you've gone to all that work of gluing this up. You want to make sure you got it right. So to start with, we're going to go ahead and plug it in, and let's go ahead and mold it and take a look at what this bit can do. Molded edge now, it's perfect, nice and clean, flush. You haven't had to worry about anything, and all we've done is glued it on. Let's go ahead and finish this one here now, and then we'll take a look at it one more time. That gives you a very classy decoration on your top of your box, and it's very simple to do. You don't have to worry about anything by just gluing on the top of them here. I've got one sample here I want to show you where I've gone ahead and molded it in a couple of different places. And we'll just set this one aside here for the moment, and let's just show you the box. I like it because it looks almost like a set of books if you look closely at it. Basically looks set up in place. We'll lay it down here. And what I've done with this one is just taken the router with the bit and cut it apart. But you notice there's a lip on here. This lip has been done by gluing the pieces on the inside. We've gone ahead and put a liner on the inside of it. And we've molded both edges of it so that it ties it all together. Again, your imagination with every type of bit you've got, it's just up to you and what you can do. And again, this box is done exactly the same as this. All I've done is I've glued the top on the top, one on the bottom, and then molded around the outside edges, then cut it apart, and then take it one more time, and once it was cut apart, then I went ahead and molded these edges. All right, let's just take a second here, put those two pieces aside here right now, and let's go ahead and look at some other things we can do. I've got two other bits I want to mount up here, and I'm going to start by just showing you the bits. This one here is probably one that you've got in your shop already, and that's just a Roman OG bit. And what we're going to talk about today is using the full bit and then using combinations thereof of the same bit. You've got more than one bit. In this particular bit here, I see 4 router bits. I have the full OG, I have the cove on the top, the round over, and if I use just the bottom part of this, I have a bead as well. So again, that's got a bunch of bits on it. Now I'm taking one more here. This is a French classical bit, and again, using just portions of the bit and using the full bit can give you different looks and different variations. So let's go ahead and cut a few of those there right now. So I'll put these two away here right now, and I'm going to change this draw line bit into something else, into one of the, I think I'm going to take the Roman OG first. I've unplugged it. Let's bring it up. Let's change the tool. And we're going to go ahead and put just the 5/32 Roman OG bits, which was what we got here now. And lock it down in place. Let's get ourselves the full OG with the line on the top to start with. Drop it back down in place. And because I'm going to use straight pieces, I'm going to go ahead and get myself a fence. Put the fence on. Lock that down in place. And let's bring over one of my pieces here. And we'll start with, we're just going to go ahead and use it as a lid on the top here. And to do that, I'm going to go ahead and mold the outside edges. And then we'll look at it from that point. Tie it down. This is one where you can hinge from just the top. Again, I think I've moved it this time. Let's go ahead and check it one more time. And we'll tighten that up. And let's go ahead and mold it. Again, when you're molding these pieces, you want to make sure you go across the grain, with the grain, across the grain, and back with the grain. So we'll plug her back in here now. And got my push block here so I can go across the grain. And now we've got the mold on the top, but how about just a place for putting your fingers on for the lid? Now we're going to put the hinges on this one, just put a place for the hinges on the lid. So to do that, I'm just going to go ahead and put a piece of tape on the top here so I can get a start and stop point. And we'll make that a fairly large one. We'll see if we can get the center on this one here, and that's going to give us a position. And I want to see how much I want to start and stop here, so let's just take a quick look at this to see, well, I need a little bit more than that, so we're going to just find our stop point here, find the center. And I'm just going to guess it right now, but you can go ahead and mark it and make the center perfect here, but I'm just going to show you the process. We're going to drop the cutter down first so that we just have the cove part of the tool now, and that give us a little bit of a cove part, and let's go ahead and cut it. Now, if you just cove the top part here, now you've got a finger place to lift up your lid, and you don't have to have hardware to do that. Another thing you might want to do is go ahead and put feet on it. I'm going to go ahead and change the cutter here now and show you a little bit of that operation with the French provincial leg, too. So we'll set that one aside here, and actually we'll bring this other one up here now. I'll set that piece aside. I'm going to change the bit to the French provincial now, and let's go ahead and take a look at that again. When you're looking at your bits, try and look and see how many different kinds of cutters you do actually have. You're able to set it up and make it look good, you're going to be all right. That side, unplug it. Again, can you see now where the cove top part of this bit is and how the different areas, angles are? Well, we'll just take a look at those when we get them set up. We'll lock this back in, tighten it down. Well, the first setup I'm going to make, I'll bring it back over here so you can see it, is I'm going to run it up so I can see that profile line. So let's bring it back around here again so you can see it. And I don't know, probably the best angle here. The thing I look at when I'm setting up the bits is that this line here to the surface is there. Otherwise, I really don't care what it looks like, and I'll just move it around so you can see it. That's what I call the profile line. So let's lock that back down in place, set her back into the position again. Let's go back to our fence again, bring it across. Because we're working with square pieces, we're able to do that. We're going to isolate the bearing. Again, bring this out here so you can see. And let's go ahead and get the piece so we can isolate that bearing for us. And let's go ahead and mold the edge. We're going to start across the grain, come back with the grain, go across the grain, come back with the grain. Whoops. We need to plug it in. Power, it always works better with power. Now there's the full pattern of the piece, and let's just take a quick look here, and we'll bring those over here, and then I'll go ahead and put it so it looks like the part of the bottom. Let's use this as the top of our box this time. I'll move this one to the side here, and there's our lid where we've got the top part. This one here, we've just gone ahead and used it as a lid to start with. How about we use it for a bottom? What I'm going to do now is I'm just going to go ahead and use just the top part of this and just mold the bottom here to give us the illusion of feet on the bottom of it. So we'll set this aside here now. I'm going to lower the cutter down so I just have the top part of that cove bit in place. And we've got the center of it. I'm going to go ahead and mark it so we have pretty well equal here. We have a start and a stop position that we have to do. And let's go ahead and mold these. We'll go across the grain first, then with the grain, then across the grain. Now if I can show you that in the corner here, we're showing you the illusion of feet. Now the quickest and simplest way to mount this onto this box, if we're using this as the top, is to go ahead, flip it over, and put 4 screw holes into this top and just mount it flush so that it matches the edges. And we'll flip her over here so you can take a closer look at this and get her lined up in place here. It's time for Router Bits, where we highlight viewer mail and projects. This project is a pear frame from Norm of Ontario. Norm makes beautiful mahogany frames with the router to display exquisite china painting done by his mother-in-law. Norm finds time from his doctoring to do hobby woodworking in his shop, and the router is his favorite tool. Our mail this time is from Richard of Georgia.
Dear Bob and Rick, the projects that I sent you are my first. Don't get me wrong. I didn't make these on my first try, and my wood box is filled with my mistakes. The good thing about mistakes is that they all go away in the fireplace. The tall cedar box is for fireplace matches and is made with rounded corners, while the small walnut box has a cove mold around the outside. Both of the boxes are mitered on the corners.
Doesn't that piano hinge fit in that gain just right? Boy, that saves a lot of chiseling, and we did cut the box apart. Now, Rick, if you got some sample tops and bottoms here, we can have a look at what can be done.
All right.
Now,
here we go. I've just got Roman OG on this one here.
That could act as a top even?
It can work as a top and a bottom. Just use the top this way. I don't know. I think you have to make it the same size. Here's one here with a provincial side. And then we'll put that on the bottom.
Change
and then I've got a top here with a panel bit that we've done where you could glue that on the edge.
And then trim it.
And trim it off. And again, this one here has got little feet on it, as you saw me make before. Tie that together, and that looks like your feet in the bottom on it.
Yep.
Hey, folks, thanks for watching us at the Router Workshop.
We'd like to hear from you. You can email us at the address on your screen. Send your comments, questions, or project ideas to the Router Workshop, Post Office Box 608, Chamberlain, South Dakota 57325. Or in Canada, the Router Workshop, Post Office Box 280, Ely, Manitoba, ROH-OHO. To learn more about the Router Workshop, visit us at the internet address on your screen. This hand-painted, antiqued table is the ideal piece of furniture to place behind a sofa that's positioned in the middle of a living room. It's designed to sit flush with the sofa back and can be finished to complement any room decor. We'll show you how easy it is to build your own sofa back table next time, right here in the Router Workshop. Funding for The Router Workshop is provided in part by Hitachi Power Tools, manufacturers of a full range of construction and woodworking power tools. For $16.99 plus $4.99 shipping and handling, you can order Bob and Rick Rosenthal's The Router, a 130-page book which includes a plan to build the router table and bench, plus numerous tips, techniques, and educational information. Call 1-800-803-1449.